As you witness this intense moment unfold, we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments and let's see how far this story has traveled. Do you think justice was served, or did things go too far? Let's talk about it below. And if you love gripping stories like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because tomorrow, we've got something even more shocking, a story you won't believe. Don't miss it. Like, share, and let's keep this conversation going. Royal Guard snaps after tourist crosses the line. The midday sun cast a golden glow over the Tower of London, its ancient stone walls standing as a silent testament to centuries of history. Tourists bustled through the cobbled pathways, snapping pictures and marveling at the grandeur of the iconic fortress. Among the crowd, Karen Mitchell, a 47-year-old corporate executive from New York, strode with an air of self-importance. She adjusted her designer sunglasses, unimpressed by the historic surroundings. Beside her, her 16-year-old daughter, Madison, trailed behind, glued to her phone, barely acknowledging her mother's words. "This is boring," Madison muttered, scrolling through her social media feed. "Can't we just go to the London Eye instead?" Karen sighed, rolling her eyes. "This is culture, Madison. I paid good money for this private tour, and you're going to appreciate it." Their guide, Lydia Morris, a historian with over 20 years of experience, kept her professional smile intact, though she had encountered visitors like Karen before, people who saw history as nothing more than a backdrop for their vacation photos. As they approached the Queen's Guard post, Lydia gestured toward a soldier standing perfectly still in his bright red uniform and towering black bearskin hat. "These are active-duty soldiers, handpicked for their service and discipline," Lydia explained. "Their role is ceremonial but deeply rooted in tradition. They stand in complete silence, representing centuries of military excellence." Karen scoffed, folding her arms. "So, they just stand there? That seems incredibly inefficient. In the US, we have interactive experiences, not people playing statues." From a few feet away, Thomas Clark, a 72-year-old retired U.S. Army Ranger, overheard the comment. He had brought his 8-year-old grandson, Peter, to witness the changing of the guard, a tradition his family had honored for generations. Peter, eyes wide with admiration, stood at attention in unconscious imitation of the soldier before him. "That lady isn't very nice, Grandpa," Peter whispered. "Some people don't understand respect," Clark murmured, shaking his head. Unbothered by the murmurs around her, Karen turned back toward the guard. Staff Sergeant Daniel Carter, a decorated Afghanistan war veteran, remained motionless. His gaze never wavered, his grip steady on his rifle. His silence was not submission, it was discipline, forged through years of service and unshakable duty. Karen, however, mistook his stillness for weakness. A smug smirk crossed her lips. "Let's see if they really never move." She pulled out her phone and stepped away from the group, ignoring Lydia's sharp warning. "Ma'am, please stay behind the barrier. The guards are not allowed to interact." Karen waved her off. "Oh, come on, it's just a little test." She stepped closer. Then, with a flick of her manicured finger, She jabbed the fabric of Carter's uniform. Time seemed to freeze. Time seemed to freeze the moment Karen Mitchell's manicured finger jabbed Staff Sergeant Daniel Carter's crisp red uniform. Every nearby tourist held their breath, eyes widening in disbelief. The Tower of London, a place of history and honor, was now the stage for an unfolding disaster. For 16 years, Carter had served with discipline and precision. 2 tours in Afghanistan, a Purple Heart, and a lifetime of training had molded him into a soldier who didn't just stand still, he stood ready. Respect, duty, control, these were the values drilled into him from the day he enlisted. And yet, in this moment, an entitled tourist had dared to cross the line. The reaction was instantaneous. A thunderous command erupted through the air, shattering the stillness like a gunshot. Step back from the guard. Carter's voice boomed across the courtyard, reverberating off the ancient stone walls. The sheer force of it sent shockwaves through the crowd. Phones shook in trembling hands. Madison gasped, her phone slipping from her grip, hitting the cobblestones with a hollow thud. A child burst into tears, clinging to their mother. Even the usual hum of London traffic beyond the tower walls seemed to pause. Karen stumbled backward, her designer heels skidding against the stone. A hand flew to her chest, her breath coming in short gasps. Her face drained of color, the sharp confidence she carried just moments ago now shattered into raw fear. Nearby, Thomas Clark, the retired Army Ranger, watched the scene unfold with a knowing expression. Now she understands, he muttered under his breath. Carter remained in his stance, rifle gripped firmly, his expression unreadable beneath the shadow of his bearskin hat. But his presence spoke volumes. This was no tourist attraction. This was a soldier, trained, tested, and unwavering in his duty. The silence was unbearable. Then, from somewhere in the crowd, a phone camera clicked. It was like setting off a domino effect. Hundreds of hands lifted, recording the moment, capturing Karen's frozen expression, the guard's unyielding authority, and the sheer weight of the moment. And just like that, the internet had its next viral sensation. Karen Mitchell stood frozen, her breath coming in sharp, panicked gasps. The Tower of London, once just another tourist stop on her itinerary, now felt like a courtroom, with hundreds of silent spectators watching her downfall unfold. The weight of Staff Sergeant Daniel Carter's command still rang in her ears. Step back from the guard. The words had shattered her arrogance, leaving her humiliated and exposed. Then, reality came crashing back. The clicks and flashes of phone cameras erupted like wildfire. Tourists whispered. Some shook their heads. Others simply stared, frozen in disbelief. Karen's 16-year-old daughter, Madison, was already scrolling through her feed, her hands trembling as she watched the first video uploads flood social media. "Oh my God," Madison whispered, her face turning pale. "Mom, you're trending." Karen blinked, her shock morphing into anger. She smoothed the front of her expensive blouse, straightened her posture, and forced a sharp breath through her nose. No. She wouldn't be embarrassed. Not by some statue of a soldier. Not by this ridiculous spectacle. "This is unacceptable," she snapped, turning back toward Carter, though she kept her distance this time. "I barely touched you. You overreacted." Carter didn't move. He didn't even acknowledge her presence. He simply returned to his impeccable stance, his rifle steady, his gaze locked forward. Karen's face twisted in frustration. "Do you know who I am?" she demanded, her voice rising again. "I'm a senior executive at Mitchell Global. I have meetings with government officials tomorrow. This is outrageous." But it was too late. Across the courtyard, 2 uniformed security officers were already approaching, their radios crackling with updates. Tower of London security had been notified. Madison groaned, burying her face in her hands. "Mom, just stop." As the officers reached them, Karen felt her heart slam against her ribs. She'd been in high-stakes corporate battles before. She'd bulldozed through boardrooms, intimidated CEOs, and always won. But here? In front of this unshakable soldier, this historic fortress, in a crowd that was already turning against her, she was losing. And worse, the entire world was about to see it. Karen Mitchell sat stiffly in the security office of the Tower of London, her perfectly manicured nails tapping anxiously against the polished wood of the table. Across from her, a uniformed officer replayed the CCTV footage, the crisp image showing her stepping over the boundary, jabbing Staff Sergeant Daniel Carter's uniform, and his immediate, disciplined reaction. "This is ridiculous," Karen muttered, arms crossed. "I barely touched him. He humiliated me in front of hundreds of people. I have a reputation." The officer didn't even blink. "Ma'am, touching a guard on duty is a security violation. These soldiers are here to protect this historic site, not entertain tourists." Karen opened her mouth to argue but was cut off by the sound of her phone buzzing violently. She grabbed it, unlocking the screen, and her heart dropped. Her name was everywhere. Entitled American Businesswoman DISRESPECTS Royal Guard. Tourist crosses the line, gets shut down instantly. The perfect response to entitlement. Videos of the incident were spreading like wildfire, millions of views pouring in within hours. The full, unedited version had gone viral. People from all over the world were roasting her, tearing her apart in the comments. And the worst part? Her own daughter had shared it. Karen's stomach twisted as she saw the post from Madison's account. A simple caption. "Yeah, this is my mom." And she was wrong. She felt like the air had been punched from her lungs. Across town, Staff Sergeant Daniel Carter sat in his barracks, scrolling through his own phone. Unlike Karen, he hadn't posted anything. He didn't need to. The public had already taken his side. Veterans, soldiers, and everyday citizens flooded social media, praising his discipline, his restraint. But Carter wasn't celebrating. His jaw tightened as he read a statement from Karen's company, distancing themselves from her behavior. Her actions had jeopardized a major deal with the British Ministry of Defense. And now? There were whispers that she might lose her position altogether. A woman who had spent her career bulldozing through life was finally hitting a wall. And for the first time in decades, Karen Mitchell wasn't in control of the narrative. Karen Mitchell sat alone in her luxury London hotel room, the glow of her laptop screen reflecting off her pale face. News articles, viral videos, and brutal comment sections surrounded her like a storm she couldn't control. The full footage of her altercation with Staff Sergeant Daniel Carter had spread across the internet, but what stung the most was the backlash from her own company. The headline on her work email was short and merciless. Urgent, response required, damage control meeting at 9 a.m. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through the messages from the Mitchell Global PR team, each one more desperate than the last. The British Ministry of Defence had put negotiations on hold, questioning the company's credibility. The CEO himself had called twice. Then came the final blow. Her daughter's post had more engagement than her own carefully edited video. Karen clenched her jaw, staring at the caption again. "Yeah, this is my mom. And she was wrong. Madison had betrayed her. Or maybe, Madison had just told the truth." With a deep breath, Karen closed her laptop. For the first time in years, she didn't have a comeback. Meanwhile, at the Tower of London, Staff Sergeant Daniel Carter stood at attention, his rifle gripped firmly, his eyes locked forward. The incident hadn't shaken him. He had faced far worse in Afghanistan. But now, there were whispers that higher-ups wanted a softer response. Captain Stephen Morris, his commanding officer, approached during the guard change. "There's pressure from the top," he said quietly. "They want you to issue a statement, something about recent stress. A controlled apology to ease tensions." Carter's jaw tightened. An apology? For what? Doing his job? He met Morris's gaze, standing firm. "I won't apologize for following protocol." Morris gave a slight nod. "Good. Because the public's on your side." He pulled out a tablet, showing Carter the latest headlines. Turns out, people still respect discipline. A knock at the tower's administrative office interrupted them. A security officer stepped in. "Sir, Karen Mitchell is at the gate. She's requesting permission to speak with Staff Sergeant Carter, properly, through official channels." For the first time since the incident, Carter's eyes flickered with curiosity. Maybe, just maybe, Karen Mitchell was finally ready to listen. "What do you think about this shocking moment at the Tower of London? Was Karen Mitchell just an entitled tourist who got exactly what she deserved, or do you think things escalated too far? Did Staff Sergeant Daniel Carter handle the situation the right way, or should the Royal Guards change the way they respond to disrespectful visitors?" This story brings up a lot of important discussions: respect for tradition, military discipline, and how social media can shape public perception. Have you ever witnessed or experienced a moment like this? Do you think the internet was too quick to judge, or was this a perfect example of actions having consequences? And let's make this interactive. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments so we can see how far this story has traveled. If you found this story intense, hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, We've got another unbelievable story you won't want to miss. Trust me, it's going to be even crazier. Let's keep the conversation going. Comment below now.